Hi guys, my name is Maureen Kelly Hardiman and I work with DXC Technology. We're so delighted that you could join us this afternoon for the AtlanTec Festival. What a week we're having here. It's the 7th year of the AtlanTec Festival. We've over 7,000 people signed up. I suppose the main benefit of doing this virtually is that we have people signed up from across the globe. The festival is running until Friday with some really strong panel sessions tomorrow, focusing on leadership and cyber security. There are sessions around digital transformation, which is the theme of this year's event, the future of work, emerging technology and cloud. So it's great to welcome such a big audience this afternoon. Thank you to our main sponsors for this year. Really, we wouldn't be able to host this each year without you guys. They make it possible. Hopefully next year we'll be able to host everybody in Galway and network in person and have a real big party. So this year's event, as we said, is focusing on digital transformation. First of all, I just want to go through some housekeeping. So in terms of Sukhi is going to do his presentation, and then we're going to take questions at the end. So questions can be submitted through the Q&A function, which is you can find in the three little dots to the right of the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you press those three little dots, the Q&A function will pop up. If you can pop your questions in there, and once Sukhi has finished his presentation, he'll go through those. So just a little bit about Sukhi. We're so thrilled to have you this afternoon, Sukhi. Sukhi is a colleague within DXC Technology. He is a VP Fellow and Chief Technology Officer for EMEA. He has over 30 years experience in the IT industry, with an outstanding record of achievement in sales and delivery leadership of a very large scale IT services, infrastructure, modernization and application delivery programs. His extensive experience across many verticals, but is a recognized leader in the government sector, financial services and manufacturing. Today, Sukhi is going to speak about IT modernization to business transformation, learn by doing and resetting quickly. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Sukhi Gill.
Thanks, Maureen. So it's actually been 18 months, I think we were working out just a little bit ago, that November 2019, I made a trip to Galway and was there, went to the university, went to see some of the other companies in the business parks there. So I really do look forward to post-pandemic getting some travel opportunities again to come and do this, and we'd love to speak again at AtlanTec next year if I'm invited. So my topic is IT modernization, leading to business transformation, but you could actually talk about this the other way around. It's really business transformation enabled by IT modernization. And as you can see here, you know, I've got a point of view that I'm going to bring across, which is to transform enterprise IT, you need to engage with IT. This is in traditional large enterprises where there is an IT function to unlock the value of new technologies and new ways of working. So as I go through my presentation here, you're going to see, just let me click on this, here we go. I'm going to bring this to life through some examples, and I'm going to start immediately with actually a consumer example. So this is putting myself in the shoes of somebody who's just left university. So this is Alex. So just imagine Alex leaves university, he starts work as a maintenance engineer for a large manufacturer. And in that context, he's provided with a smartwatch that allows him to navigate to different facilities, a tablet that displays and schedules his work and orders, a pair of smart glasses that displays machine instructions so that he can use stuff like augmented reality to overlay a physical machine that would have some instructions on what he needs to do. Those smart glasses are linked to some sort of AirPods that provide how-to videos via voice commands for things he's never done before. He's essentially got an expert AI coach on demand, so a software AI that is actually enabling him, and he's operating like a seasoned pro after 2 weeks. Now, I think most of you on this call know this is possible today. With the technology that exists in the marketplace, this is possible. The challenge is that large enterprises are not innovating at the speed of the startups to enable this. And there are many factors involved in that. And I'm going to try and unbundle that a little bit today. Really a call to action on you need to do this, you need to go fast, but also what are some of the challenges as enterprises try and do this. And so clearly the implications of Alex coming into the workforce is that digital transformation is today's imperative. It is driving exponential change and opportunity. It's driven by CEO level factors that I'll come on to, but it's actually also enabled by this rapid advance of technologies that are driving this disruption. This imperative really is the forefront of how people are seeing top line growth and cost savings in large businesses, government departments and enterprises. But it is bringing exponential change. While there's great opportunities to improve and grow your business, there are things that you need to do to really benefit from this kind of technology. Some of this is driven by consumers. They're living very digital lives. They have a demand for and thirst. And you've seen during the pandemic how quickly people have adopted Zoom into their daily life, not least because they had to for schooling and education, etc. But digital native companies have actually thrived during this pandemic because they can attract consumers and they can disrupt industries without having the typical real estate and brick and mortar presence and facilities that are required to be on the high street. They can give you a shopping experience straight to your home. Clearly, this then is causing radical shifts in business practices. Making technology at the heart of the business processes is what enterprises are looking to do. This requires new skills and capabilities to truly transform. And probably, as you've heard in various talks over the last couple of days, digital and this digital transformation through the technology and new ways of working does enable businesses to change at unprecedented speeds. And, you know, one example that I've personally witnessed is, you know, the whole democratization of trading platforms, this sort of ability of consumers to now get the kind of information that traders get in the city and actually be aware of what's happening in the stock markets and so on. You know, that has enabled people to truly understand the power of data and what kind of decisions you can make on your own from an investment perspective. Now, as leaders try and harness this technology, what we find is that there are the companies who are really effective at using these approaches are advancing their business strategy and performing better than others, right? The areas they're significantly better are in time to market for new products or services. Typically, the customer experience of a digital leader, this is the outer circle in these sort of pops, is better than the colored circles, right? So you can see across here, across these dimensions. So in time to market for new products, customer experience, operational efficiency, in all of these areas, the digital leaders are much better than their competitors. And across these other factors, on average, their time to market is better. As a result, both revenue and profitability are higher too. And now companies that need to take advantage of these technologies, companies need to take advantage of these technologies for that superior performance, but they've got to realize that this isn't just about the technology adoption. There are various other factors. First of all, they have to be much more collaborative in how they deliver that business change. They have to have a long-term mindset on technology implementation. The digital technology that advances the business strategy isn't one or two technologies, it's like 10 to 20 of these technologies. We live in a world where there isn't like just a few of these technologies. There are many technologies that need to be mastered. And most importantly is the effective leveraging of cloud in that environment. So we just made a host and click on that. And then the underlying data that exists in some of the legacy systems, as well as the new systems of engagement that you build, the real innovators are maximizing on that data use across the estate. Let me just page down. Here we go. Now, while the CIOs in IT are under pressure, it's really driven by the CEOs of the organizations. And that's because there is an ongoing urgent need to gain market advantage through business acceleration. Competition is rife. Startups are trying to disintermediate you. So CEOs are saying to the CIO, help me accelerate revenue, help me get agility and time to market and reduce my cost. You know, the adoption of cloud is well understood, but the amount of workload, I would say at the moment, the easy stuff has moved to cloud, either public or private. What really needs to be looked at is over the next couple of years, an aggressive move of that workload, but not just the lift and shift type work that's happened, an actual transformation of that workload as you move forward. Now, several challenges need to be overcome. So apologies, you're going to hear an ambulance go down the street here. I'm just going to wait for it to go past. I live on a high street in Southampton. So challenges to overcome here. While there's been a lot of early adoption of cloud, not done right, you can end up spending both on the traditional infrastructure and the cloud and actually increasing your cost, right? We're seeing an increasing number of cloud migration projects that are failing. And some of these are driven by lack of talent and skill gaps or not properly architecting for the cloud. You have to make sure that you're covered for regulatory compliance, various regulated industries from healthcare, financial services, etc. It's not just a case of adopt cloud. You have to adopt the cloud in a regulated way. And then many of the apps migration projects that we see customers initiate just take too long. And I can quote a CIO, a digital CIO from Scotland, who said, I've got more pilots than Ryanair, pilot projects going, but I'm struggling to actually conclude on some of these projects. So it's a challenge, right? It's an imperative, but it's also a challenge. And the challenge is multifaceted in terms of skill, adoption of cloud, and how to architect your way through this. And part of what I'm going to talk through today are the fact that it's much more than the technology side that you need to master. It's actually truly understanding a different way of working and an operating model to enable this. My hypothesis here is that if in a large enterprise there is an existing IT function, that IT function is not exclusively the only group that understands technology. All facets of the business, from marketing, sales to the line of businesses, are all trying to master technology. But I would suggest that IT does need to act a little bit of a guardian, not a gatekeeper, but a guardian of the security, the regulatory requirements, and become an enabler of the businesses to truly transform and adapt. And so you want to be an IT department that is helping this time to market, and that is by helping around this business alignment and governance and organization, because most of the people in IT tend to have a technology background. They hopefully have had some software engineering background, not always, but they've had some software engineering background. So I'd like to think they should be enabling the business to rapidly build software and deploy software quickly. You know, the KPI should be how fast can we help you deploy software? And traditional IT departments have these KPIs like mean time to repair. You know, forward-looking IT departments have a KPI still called MTTR, but it's mean time to release. How fast can we help the business release software? And this all goes back to the Mark Andreessen sort of software eating the universe. Most large enterprises we engage with are now calling themselves technology companies, be that in energy, in healthcare, or in financial services, or in manufacturing. Technology is intrinsic to the success of their business going forward. So faster product release cycles, fail fast culture is required in that sort of beginning. From a business agility perspective, still a lot of IT cost is hidden in how IT is managing legacy estates today, but they need to handle that technical debt, try and tear down the technical debt, and drive cloud adoption and cloud native development to help the business take that existing system to the cloud, or if the systems are not going to go to the cloud, at least democratize the data that's hidden behind those systems and enable that to be accessed from the cloud. Privacy, access, governance applying. Now, one of the most important things, though, is the systems of innovation large enterprises are going to use are going to be in the cloud. You want to use facial recognition, you're not going to build your own, you're going to use something in the cloud. You want to use voice to text, you're probably going to use an API in the cloud. You want to send somebody a text, you're going to use Twilio. So these kind of APIs, systems, SaaS services, all exist in the cloud. So exploiting the cloud and doing that in a secure way is also something that the IT department needs to enable. They need to help implement change at scale, maintain a baseline of quality, security, and continuous optimization, and allow for secure and compliant operations. You've probably all seen what happened with the Colonial Pipeline recently and the challenges around IT, cybersecurity. And so going forward, I think increasingly that becomes an area, oops, didn't mean to do that. Increasingly becomes an area of cost, added cost. But somebody told me today, the amount enterprises spend on coffee probably exceeds how much they spend on cybersecurity, and I find that hard to believe. But that is one of the things that I think enterprises will spend more on going forward. And there's a whole proliferation of companies in this space that are looking to help manage both on-premise and in the cloud. And then finally, simplified operation. And I think that I'll come back to tearing down that technical debt, reducing the cost of running the business today, and moving to a much more automated and intelligent automation and optimized environment, so that the cost of that IT, both in terms of how you scale going forward, but the current cost is aligned to the business revenue that you're trying to seek going forward. Okay. Now, to enable this, we've got a point of view at DXC, which is IT modernization is a journey you need to take alongside the business, and it starts clearly from this IT and business alignment. So this has been I've been an enterprise architect almost most of my life, in government through to commercial enterprises, and this is one of those always challenges: is IT and business aligned? Well, going forward, they're one and the same thing. IT has to be fully aligned to the business objectives, because they are going to be a key enabler of that. Now, in this journey, obviously, there's an end state we're looking for, and I'll take you to the right-hand side here: resilient, agile, rapid, scalable, and secure IT platform that will enable the business ultimately to deliver on the applications of the business processes that they need to deliver. But it does start on this left-hand side here, where we align strategy with the required business outcomes to ensure modernization, deliver intended savings, flexibility, and business acceleration. And often when I'm asked to come in and see a client, and it's either about our journey to no ops, or what we want to do about continuous integration, continuous development, or mainframe modernization, I always start with, well, what are you trying to achieve? What are the real things you're trying to achieve from a business alignment perspective and an enabler? Clearly, simplify and optimizing the existing IT, so that you make sure you're patching, managing, not being out of revision of operating system levels and hardware releases. All of that is a must do. And what's made really easier is as you shift to the cloud, it's done for you, right? And I would suggest that even using infrastructure as a service in the cloud, you need to go to serverless, because then you won't even have to care about the infrastructure and what you need to, the software you need to run on top of it. Move to serverless modules over time. And that clearly is more to the right-hand side. The bottom line, though, is a lot of large enterprises still have a lot of legacy ITS assets and applications and infrastructure that needs to be managed and slowly, technical debt worn down over time. And there are certain customers, especially in the certain regulated environments or in secure environments, think of Ministry of Defence in the UK as an example, or aerospace and defence customers, who will not push everything into the cloud. So they're going to have on-premise data centers or third-party data centers that they leverage. Now, ultimately, modernizing these applications is the biggest challenge that we've got to go forward. Modernizing the legacy to the cloud, developing these native cloud applications so you can gain business agility and insights. And so as the line of business typically is involved in developing these apps and data, the IT department needs to enable that through unbreakable pipelines, through automated testing and release cycles, and the underlying developer tools. So this is where, for IT, developers should be their primary customer in my mind. They should be focused on the developer experience and make it really easy. So developers, and then going forward, that could be data scientists with their data models and their applications. All of those developers have really a streamlined experience as they try and release code through. Now, the way IT can do that is they need to get on board with infrastructure as code. If they haven't done that, they're way behind everybody else. So if they're already doing that using Chef, Puppet, various sort of scripting mechanisms, then why not expose the pipeline they have today to manage infrastructure into the cloud on premise and expose that pipeline also and with the developers to a consistent infrastructure and application development pipeline and extend it to the data scientists. So these different groups should actually start converging on a release mechanism and a sort of release per day, per hour, per minute. And this is the paradigm shift that's happened here. Large enterprises were used to doing releases every month or every 6 months, dare I say, right? Whereas, the Netflixes and the Facebooks of this world, they're doing several releases a minute, if not more, right? Now, here are some of the KPIs that line up against this sort of paradigm. I won't go through all of these, but you can see, the IT and business alignment, it's around that return on investment agenda. That's what's being looked at primarily. On simplify and optimize IT, it is that reduction in cost. So help me get rid of that technical debt and reduce the complexity and risk. Give me some sort of secure and compliant compliant operations at that reduced cost. But on modernize apps, I've covered this. Faster product release cycles, business agility based on insights, scaling on demand. I don't want to pay for stuff that I don't need. Just give me just-in-time infrastructure and platforms to support the application development at a reduced cost. And then the two I didn't really cover on the previous slide, the secure hybrid operations at scale and designed towards no-ops. And I will come back to these later in the presentation. But this secure hybrid is managing on-premise, managing into the cloud at the same time, and evolving the operating model and including building resilience and security into that. So as you sort of expand into the cloud, it opens up a larger threat landscape that you really need to look at and manage proactively. And so securing that ecosystem, implementing that change, allowing the business to grow, to leverage APIs, third-party platforms, and so on, but at the same time, trying to understand how we manage that and make sure that we're secure all the way through. And then over time, automating significant amounts of that to move into an environment where it's called a no-ops. I mean, the no-ops doesn't mean there are no operators. It just means probably some of your best software engineers are in your no-ops environment because they've scripted and automated everything, and including, using things like Chaos Monkey to try and break the system on purpose to make sure if it self-heals itself. Now, to deliver that kind of modernization journey, all the way from business alignment through to the simplified optimized IT application and so on, you really will need to develop a platform. But the platform you will develop for whatever enterprise or startup you're in will actually be an aggregation of third-party platforms, right? And so our view is leverage ruthlessly from the cloud to build your platform. Your platform is typically your tools, your processes, and the underlying infrastructure. There may be things you have to build yourself on your own premise, but cloud first has to be your strategy, mobile first has to be your strategy. So a little bit of a voiceover over this. The future operating model that we're going to come and talk to about IT has this enabling platform. And it's not just, I'm not going to describe something here, which is like once you've built it, you never need to change it. It's always evolving. It's it's not a static end state. It's a direction of travel. So the reality is that the technology platform will contain some elements of the old and the new, needing to serve both the current traditional infrastructure and applications and the evolving new application environments. But fundamentally, the modern technology platform needs to deliver speed. It's actually built to rapidly deliver applications. We know organizations can accelerate functional velocity and throughput with the right platforms and tools, new skills and operating methods, automation and lean processes. We've seen startups do this. I was lucky enough to spend a couple of times in my career. Most recently in 2015-16, I did a startup in Silicon Valley. And they don't work like traditional enterprises. Everything is in the cloud, and there's a release cadence that is very much at the heart of what the startup is trying to do. Get code delivered out to end users who can use it. So the platform envisioned here incorporates comprehensive security. It's sort of this purple ring around the platform. All the data is encrypted for security and privacy. Identities and roles are verified as organizations phase out passwords. Data traffic is monitored for cloud to edge awareness, compliance. Audit and response are also built in. Think zero trust management in a modernized environment as the norm. So think that you're building a platform in a hostile environment. That's how you need to think about building services going forward. The security in the infrastructure layer, clearly there is to protect the data. It starts from understanding where the data is, the sensitivity of the data, and you have to build in controls and process around it, and then secure everything else down the chain. Think about the identity framework that's going to be required to protect the data and the infrastructure security mechanisms that are in support of protecting the data. To be honest, it's all about the data. And that's going to be the most valuable asset to the enterprise going forward. On the business and application side, you can see at the top of this stack here, the enterprise is using DevSecOps to dramatically shorten time to market, reduce errors, and make security an essential skill for all developers. The developer persona, as I've already said, is the key customer of this new operating model, and platform as the infrastructure and operations leader is really looking to enable apps development and modernization. And so, you've got to easily be able to integrate in platform requests from the development community. That could be Red Hat, could be Pivotal, could be open source sort of platforms, easily integrated, made available to developers so that they can build applications on top. Overall, though, this platform is data centric. The data becomes the strategic asset of the enterprise, and the technology platform actually is there to serve a data centric organization. Think of the data engineering team you might need going forward. So no longer just the DBAs to manage the traditional sort of databases where you would have done extract, transform, load, but now a data engineering team that is actually looking at the ELT. They extract, load, and then transform on demand for the data scientists who have got various hypotheses they're trying to solve for the business. So, the deep analytics, data mining, machine learning, predictive analytics are enabled through this kind of platform for those developers and data scientists who are looking to deliver proactive end-to-end management in the platform. But most of all, they're trying to deliver business intelligence that will drive new revenue streams for the enterprise. So I won't cover a lot more detail in here, but think of this platform as being adaptable and easily added to and enabled so that organizations can make changes quickly, innovate continuously, replace rigid elements with cloud-based elements and open source quickly and responsively. And then, these assets are basically provisioned on demand depending on how the business is scaling going forward. The piece that I will just cover here is this concept of site reliability engineering. And this is where, if IT have adopted a sort of developer first cloud and software-oriented approach themselves, over time they will shift to be follow the sort of Google site reliability engineering SRE concept, and that'll drive the no ops because they will automate every element. They won't want to do manual tasks. They will automate everything to deliver a platform. Now, we've done this to ourselves, clearly. I mean, DXC has got our own platform, DXC. It's made up of third-party platforms. It's in the cloud, on Amazon Web Services, in Azure. It uses things like ServiceNow to do workflow management and so on. And so, our technology platform, on top of which we build our own products, like DXC Assure, which is an insurance product, we've had to build this kind of platform that enables us to build stuff at speed. Now, when we built stuff at speed, where, for instance, DXC Assure has got 1,000 developers, it's got 3,000 support staff. So imagine one product that is going to market for insurance where there is 1,000 developers, 3,000 support staff. But what we've had to do over several years is transform how they work and how they use this platform to deliver innovation at speed rapidly going forward, right? Now, the operating model, and this is not IT operating model now, this is operating model for a business. And it could be an operating model here for DXC, but I'm going to use it in the context of an enterprise. That operating model has to also transform. There are various third party, not third party, let's call it standards based approaches out there. Some people will say, well, why don't we just follow scaled agile framework, SAFe? And SAFe 5.1, I think, is the latest version out there that includes operational value streams in that sort of business strategy layer, as well as the IT value streams that are inherent in the framework. IT for IT is another framework that's out there, TMA. Now, rather than cargo call any of those and say to anybody, just follow it, we actually fundamentally believe that every enterprise is different. You can't just copy the Spotify model, right? A consumer company based in Sweden and the culture they have might not be portable to a health devices business in Galway, right? And so we're really lucky within DXC to have somebody in our business called Simon Wardley. He's a Wardley mapping fame. I'll come back to that in a second. But Simon would say, look, this represents a framework of the common domains you need to think about in your operating model, but you should map each element of this operating model. So what are you planning to do in your business strategy and portfolio? Most importantly, what are you doing around your people and culture? What are the capabilities and services you need? What are you doing around your cloud architecture, the architecture landscape, design authority, etc.? What are you going to buy versus build? So what kind of partners are you going to use? What is the financial governance around that? And then overall, where are you with your data, governance, decision making? So this is a DXC framework we put together. It's sort of, we could give you a scaled agile framework version of this, an IT for IT version, etc., etc. But what we tend to say is don't cargo call and just copy the framework. Think about what you're trying to do and build this as a operating model for your enterprise. And then the IT operating model that enables that is actually inherent in here. It's no longer a separate operating model. It's actually part of your operating model. And just to bring this to life a little bit, I'm going to show you an example of a artifact that might come out of this kind of process. So if I go back, you can see here in the business strategy, we use things like business model canvas. So this is using the Alex Osterwalder, or also called the strategizer template, where you can imagine what a value proposition is you might want to take to market. It's called a business model canvas. We also use Wardley mapping then to work out, well, what is it we should build? So I'll give you a couple of examples here of how we use this operating model internally. So I'm going to take you back to Alex, right at the beginning of this conversation. Remember Alex, the guy who turned up as a maintenance engineer, was productive from day one? Well, that was because the company he went to work with thought about how they were going to enable field workforce with this new value proposition. It's a 9-box model, is the BMC. Probably most people are familiar with it. But the middle value proposition you can see here is actually a value proposition about how we're going to enable field workforce. The right-hand side talks about how we're going to go to market, which customer segments we're going to take that to, through which customer relationships and channel. Left-hand side describes the key activities, resources, and partners we will use to build this value proposition. Bottom left, the cost structure and revenue stream. Very simply, on one slide, we've decided we're going to be in the business of enabling field workforce better, and this is the value proposition. The question is, should we buy this service or should we build it? And this is where we use techniques like Wardley mapping. Again, a little selfishly, Simon works for us, I'm pleased to say. So if you're not familiar with Simon Wardley's method, I'm going to cover that just briefly here. You've got the value chain on the left-hand side. On the x-axis at the bottom here, Genesis through to commodity. Everything over time becomes commodity. Whatever is envisaged a Genesis and custom built, over time, as products are built to reflect that need, it becomes a product. Many people then build that product and it becomes commoditized. So there's a left to right flow over time. The things that become commoditized enable higher order value things to be built on the left-hand side. And this is where you've got the pioneer settler town planner. As the CTO for DXC in this region, I typically play in the pioneering side. So you can see the red dot says CTO product focus. So example, in Industry 4.0, converged infrastructure in a plant, let's say, something like I'll pick an Irish company, Glambia, agricultural company, building cheese, I think cheese factories, biggest mozzarella plants, I think, in the world. But they would have a level of automation in their factories. Now, some of the elements that we might want to do is to have some infrastructure in the plant that is enabling integration and automation and logistics together with the robotics, the machine-to-machine connectivity and IoT. Now, while there are third-party platforms out there from, people like GE, Predix, and PTC, ThingWorks, etc., bringing that together as a specific solution in that factory to enable the outcomes thereafter might not be a product today, and it might need some integration of various aspects. The things on the right-hand side, you shouldn't build from scratch. You should try and use. So don't build your own cloud unless you really have to have a private cloud. But even then, you can buy that as a template. Definitely, if you have to do finance and accounting, Salesforce, HR type stuff, manage security and threats, these are all kind of services you can buy. But the focus should be in this circle. This thing doesn't exist. This is where the hard work is. And actually, if we do this, it'll differentiate us in the marketplace. And this is where, as an enterprise could say, well, I'm actually going to build this, so I'm going to work with a third party to build this. And this is what we do, right? I mean, we either help enterprises do it, or we actually build these products ourselves in various industries like banking and capital markets, automotive. We build products. We're mostly an IT outsourcing and a project services company, but we productize certain things. Most of the time, though, we help customers build products. And that's where we have scale in engineering and software engineering and IT services to enable this. So I've given you two examples there of the Alex scenario at the beginning come to life through a business model canvas, but actually let's say he was the maintenance engineer going into a factory, then there could be this new IoT platform that he's responsible for maintaining that is actually something new and novel in the marketplace, but it's actually delivering really maximum outcomes to an agro company. Now, the bigger challenge in all of what I've said up to now is the people culture side, and it's shifting to this agile way of working where actually a level of fail fast is allowed. It's one of the my experience is one of the hardest things I've seen in large enterprises is to say, look, there is still room for waterfall, but you have to apply the right method to the right problem. So you can see in that previous slide, it actually says build in-house using partners and agile techniques because you won't get the product right the first time. So you need to iterate rapidly. Whereas if you're using off-the-shelf products or you're outsourcing to utility providers, you might want to do that in an agile way, but you might also want to do that in a standard contractual way. So use the right methods and techniques for the right parts of your project. Trying to do everything agile might not be the right thing, right? And so as we look at IT transformation, operating model transformation, this moving to agile way of working is one of the biggest challenges going forward, and helping enterprises learn from how we do it. And I get asked all the time from CIOs, from CTOs, how are you guys doing it? And doing it at small scale is not so much of a challenge. Doing agile software engineering for platforms at large scale is a challenge, and that's where there's nothing like learning by doing. And I sort of covered that in the title of my presentation, learning by doing, because what you'll do is the retrospectives, you'll do things wrong, or you'll learn from more experienced people, and you'll do more of what works, do less of what doesn't work. Has to be a mantra in this sort of way of working. Now I am going to go back to the operating model at IT, and I'm going to give you a couple of flywheels here. So when we look at this, it's too big an elephant to change the whole operating model as a one big program. You've got to start thinking about new product development at the same time as managing the legacy. But there are flywheels, and I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. So this is the Operate Secure Hybrid at Scale. You can see here just this flywheel on hybrid multi-cloud operations needs to bring together processes, finance, service portfolio, risk and compliance, the organization culture. So we have playbooks for here's how you can quickly get an operating model for how to do cloud operations as well as traditional on-premise operations done in a hybrid way. We have patterns to do that. Do you want to go to no ops? Well, you've probably got to get your hybrid operations up and running. You've probably got to have a mature understanding of infrastructure as code. But if you've got some of those building blocks in place, here's the next kind of things you can do as you move to no ops. But there's nothing like doing learning and repeating more of what works and what doesn't work. And so I'm going to pause there, really, with a sort of final slide from me, which says, it's what we do day in and day out. DXC's got an industrialized approach to this. We develop and execute modernization agenda for enterprises, sort of our calling card. We orchestrate with our partners. We won't build stuff that exists with third-party partners. We let stand on the shoulders of those giants who've got platforms, but there's still a piece of work that's required to integrate and make these platforms work effectively for enterprises. That's our calling card. That's what we do. We're DXC Technology, and I'm going to pause here to take your questions.